Because that's the thing that I think we go through a lot too, is we're not allowed to question authority in
Yes.
so many of our households. So then we grow up thinking we can't question any authority figure. So even if we feel like we're being treated unfairly, we sit there and we take it because we have to respect our elders. And it's like, I'm teaching my son to question everything. And that means he's going to question me too. So I have to be ready for those questions, and I have to be ready for the challenge of the things that he may question or challenge me on.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of parents would look at that and be like, that's disrespectful. No, when he gets older, I don't want him to be afraid to question anything. And I'm not perfect. I can admit that. So if he has questions that he needs to ask me, I want him to feel comfortable enough to question even my authority. Because I may not be making the right choices. I may be frustrated in the moment, or I may need to explain to him, mommy got frustrated because she was trying to protect you because you're about to jump off the coffee table and and off yourself right in front of her. And I need you not to play like that because it's dangerous. We don't want to do the long explanation.
Yeah.
And that comes a lot from what we learned as children, is I don't want to do the long explanation. It's like, well, the long explanation creates a more cognitive individual for you to deal with. Now you're not just punishing a child for doing child things. You're explaining to them the safety and how to navigate around a world that's, everything's bigger than them.
Yeah.
Everything is
and
bigger.
then now in this time of day and age, you do have to teach them that way to be prepared.
Exactly. To be prepared and to defend themselves and to know, like,
how old is your son now?
He's 3 years old.
Oh, okay. So he's for some reason I thought your kids were, because 3 years ago you won the America's.
Oh, I was on America's Got Talent, and he was about a year. He was about a year, or maybe like a year and a half, I think, during that time. I gotta remember what year I was on, but I think I was on it 2 years ago. Because he was old enough to be walking around at that point. Because he would walk around the set and like we have some pictures of him like sitting at the judges' tables and stuff like that. Like the crew would sometimes let him like come to the set and have him walk around a little bit. So that was cool.
How are you able to balance because I remember my kids now are adults. I had one of them very young, so that's why, you know what I mean? I have 2 adult children.
Yeah.
I started real early. I'm kind of glad because now it's done and out. How are you balancing having he's a toddler, preschooler.
Yeah.
And working and being so successful now as a comic?
I mean, it's never easy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, Shonda Rhimes did a great speech where she talks about being a working mom and the things you have to sacrifice being a working mom. Something's falling short. There's never a perfect balance, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I would love to lie to people and be like, oh, it's perfectly balanced. It's fine. I'm a miracle worker and it's amazing. Yeah. No, there's times when I have to be at work and I can't be at home with my son. I can't be present with my son. I can't, deal with the issues. I can't, be there sitting there playing with him or having those moments. So that gets sacrificed. And then there's times where I'm with my son and I can't be on my phone and I can't be checking emails and I can't be pushing myself. So then that's when that gets sacrificed. And you just kind of you choose what you're willing to sacrifice. And a lot of the time it's me doing my best to give as much time and attention to my son in those moments. Like when I'm home, like I've been home now for a couple of weeks. I just actually did a 1-night gig and then came back. All I want to do is hang around him. All I want to do is watch him grow and develop and be focused on him. And I still have work to do when I'm here. Still got to go out to the clubs but it's hard every time to kind of leave him, and you try not to beat yourself up as a mom because you also realize that my son needs his own autonomy. I can't be glued to him all the time regardless. Right. These are his developmental years, so it's important for me to be present with him. But if he has too much of a dependency on me, then we run into like, I can't leave the house because he's clinging to me and crying.
Attachment issues.
And it's like, I don't want him to have those issues. And that there's no predicting, he could still have them, but I can do my best to do the obviously preventable things and be as present as possible. Yeah. I find I'm fascinated by motherhood, man. And I'm approaching it very differently than I was, then I'm parenting differently than I was parented in that sense, which is not a knock to my parents.
Yeah.
I talk about this on stage where I say, I think we're all at this point aware that we were raised by unhealed people.
No, that's so true.
We were raised by unhealed people,
because
whether
my
they
parents had a lot
chose,
of toxic.
yes, whether they didn't know any better,
Yeah.
or they chose not to know any better.
Mm-hmm.
Our parents were most likely, and for the most of us, especially for my generation, for the older generations, stuck in survival mode.
Yeah.
Our parents were stuck. My parents aren't even boomers. My parents are greatest generation, bro. Like,
Yeah.
they were trying to survive. And so when you kind of change the perspective, and that's not to excuse any toxic behavior,
Right.
but I think what it did for me personally was pull me out of a judgmental place from parenting and being like, oh, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, and oh, because of this, I'm like this. I went, okay, I understand I have a trauma map that I'm still connecting the dots of.
Yeah.
And to avoid passing down that generational trauma to my son,
Right.
I have to switch up the things that I know for me as a child were not helpful.
Yeah.
You know, and it's little things, letting him say no. Letting him say no to something.
Teaching him boundaries now at a young age.
Teaching him boundaries, teaching him consent, teaching him if he doesn't want to be kissed or hugged.
Yeah, because in our generation, we were
forced.
Yeah, we were forced.
To hug every tia, to hug every tío, to give kisses to everybody.
Why didn't you say?
It's rude not to.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, what people don't realize, and I understand why people do that, you know?
Yeah.
It's really a social norm that people are afraid of, like, breaking. You know, that social norm of, oh, be friendly and say hi, and you don't want to look like a rude person. It trains us to be people pleasers.
Yeah.
It trains us that it's more important how we appear in the room than how we actually feel.
Right.
So I'm very big on, if my son does not want to be touched, he does not get touched. Like, if he doesn't want to hug you, he don't got to hug you. If he doesn't want to kiss you, he don't got to kiss you. If he doesn't want you to kiss him, don't kiss him. If he doesn't want you to hug him, do not hug him. He has a right to his body. Teaching a child respect and consent for their own body, I think, makes it easier for them to understand it in other people.
Yeah, that's good. We have to change the narrative as they get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And really, I mean, I just had a talk with my son today because he has a habit of, if he doesn't want to sing, he doesn't want you to sing either. And I told him, you don't get to govern someone else's body. You can govern your own body. That's fine. If you don't want to sing, you don't have to sing. But if mommy would like to sing, mommy can sing. You don't get to tell mommy what she can do with her body, just like she doesn't get to tell you what you can do with your body.
Good, teaching him. Yeah.
And getting in those lessons. And, you know, he cried a little bit because he felt frustrated at the fact that he didn't want anybody singing. But I had to let him know, like, you can only control your portion of something.
Yeah.
If you don't want to be around singing people, you have every right to leave the room, go into the bedroom, go into another room. That's fine. But you don't get to tell somebody, stop dancing, stop singing.
Yeah.
It's just teaching them what they can and cannot control.
Now, since you've had your son, have you been able to tour? Like, have you not toured as much, or how is your touring different now?
The touring is still about the same. It's just sometimes I get the luxury of bringing him with me.
Oh,
and sometimes I don't.
Okay.
And those times are always harder because I have to spend time away from my son. And, you know, I was in Israel for like 10 days doing comedy. And that was the hardest one because it was the first time I was leaving for more than like a weekend. And that was really tough. And anytime I have to leave, it's hard. Like, I cry every time I have to leave for an extended period of time. I miss him. I limit my phone calls only because it upsets him to see my face.
Yeah.
Because he starts to question why I'm not there.
My daughter did that till she was probably 14 years old. Like,
it takes a minute because, and it is a psychological thing. And you're like, I get it. You feel abandoned. You feel like, where am I? Like, I'm your security blanket to a certain extent because I am your protector, provider. It's my job as your parent. So I understand the upset. And I don't fault him for it. And I don't say, oh, there's no reason to cry. I go, I understand. You're upset. Mommy's not there. You don't have to talk to her. So you don't have to talk to me. You don't have to be on the phone with me. I'll just watch you play. It's fine. Go play.
Aww.
Because I understand there's an emotional upset there that he needs to learn how to emotionally regulate for himself. And then when he's ready, he'll come up to the phone and he'll start talking to me, or he'll blow me a kiss or something. But he needs that time to adjust.
Right.
And it's the hardest thing because it breaks your heart sometimes when your kid is like, I don't want to hug you. I don't want to touch you. And you're like, damn, what's wrong with me? Like, why you don't love me, bruh? And it's like, it's not about that. It's about like anybody else. We're just not used to giving kids that autonomy. We're not used to giving them the right to their own bodies, which I think puts a lot of people in a not so healthy space.